Okay, we'll call the August 22nd meeting of the Planning Commission to order. We'll begin with the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jess, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Cicero.
Here.
Mr. Cook.
Here.
Mr. Perkovic.
Here.
Mr. Sidoti.
Here.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Here.
Mr. Varga.
Here.
Mr. Snow.
Here. Entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes of the August 1st meeting.
So moved. Second.
Just when you're ready.
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes. We have 3 public hearings this evening. The format we follow for public hearings, we allow the applicant an opportunity to tell us what they want to do at a particular location. Then anyone wishing to speak in favor is afforded a similar opportunity. Then those wishing to speak against are given their opportunity. So with that in mind, we have a conditional use permit to allow outside dining at 7787 Reynolds Road. Is that applicant here? Go right ahead. If you'd identify yourself for the clerk, please.
Good evening, everybody. My name is David Berkovitz. I'm with LRC Realty.
Okay, and give us a quick overview of what you'd like to do with that location.
So what we're looking to do is essentially reestablish the patio area that was previously used by Bravo on the south end of the building for the new tenant that is coming in. We're slightly going to reduce the size of the patio because the new entrance will be at the new entrance for the tenant will be at the southwest corner. The patio area gets slightly reduced from what it currently is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against? Okay, we'll close the public portion. Any comments from the administration? Kathy?
Mr. Chairman, I just would like to bring up the discussion of the bollards. There was an indication from the applicant that they felt that the existing wall would suffice, and I guess we wanted to have more documentation as to the ability for the wall to withstand any kind of impact.
So the existing wall's a 12-inch masonry wall constructed with brick, CMU, and then brick on the inside face. That goes down to a footer. I understand what the intent of the code is, certainly, but the construction of the entire building, as I would say, is not too different than the construction of many buildings within your city, which is a single veneer brick with metal stud backup. So I think the people are far safer behind a 12-inch masonry wall than, I mean, they could go through any part of the building if you're talking about somebody dining and getting hit by a car. On the one new open side, we would certainly be agreeable to adding bollards.
So the walls are just going to be on this side of the building? How about the, because Bravo had walls on both sides of the building.
Right. So the walls will be in the, could you keep the picture the way it was? Thank you. So the wall will be in the front. It is now. We've slightly cut it back on the right-hand side, and it will be open on what would be the right-hand side of that picture, and there we would install bollards.
So there was a comment in the staff report talking about the wrought iron fence that you were going to put in. The fence that has the light bulbs on it, the lights. Am I right?
That was in the, so that was in the building plan and plans that were submitted, and I believe that is a prototype railing that they use at other locations, but it shouldn't be on the plans that were made part of the patio submission. It's the
Well,
other.
that's not part of my patio submission. That is part of the tenant's. I just so we're clear on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So what are we seeing? Are we seeing the tenants or yours?
fine.
Okay.
That's what I've submitted tonight.
So based on what is approved tonight is what will indicate with the building plans. I just wanted to make sure that that was put out there
Okay,
for clarification.
okay. Commission members, any questions for the applicant?
I'd like to make an observation. If you look at that photograph, you can see the masonry on the corner has been replaced because it was hit by a car. So this is a meaningful discussion we're having.
I'm not saying it's unmeaningful.
Anything else? That's all.
I'll entertain a motion.
Right, Mr. Chairman.
Go right ahead, Mr. Sidoti.
Mr. Berkovitz, right?
Correct.
Okay. Kathy, just based on his testimony, the administration is satisfied that this brick wall, this 12-inch wall, is safe and would protect patrons far more than a bollard? Or would our engineers still want him to submit evidentiary documentation to the fact that it is safe, that it proves it's safe?
Yeah, I would believe the latter. I know that in a recent review that we had with a restaurant doing an outdoor patio area, actually at the mall, there were actually bollard-like structures, their devices that were actually incorporated into the wall itself. Now, they were building that wall, and obviously this is already constructed. If they can provide enough information or documentation that the vehicle impact will be minimized with this wall and it's negligible in comparison to what a bollard would do, then we would be satisfied with that. But I think we would need something other than the statements made tonight.
Mr. Berkovitz, you heard Ms. Mitchell. For the record, are you going to provide that documentation?
Happy to do that, but would also like to ask a question. If in fact we find that it is not adequate, can I get approval tonight to just remove that wall and install bollards around it to meet your code tonight?
Mr. Chairman, what do you think?
I don't think so.
Remove the
not?
wall altogether?
Yes.
If he finds it doesn't meet the standards, he wants to remove it
And
and
you're-
install bollards per the code, can he get that approval tonight? That's what he's asking.
No.
No.
No, we're going to react to what's before us tonight,
I don't see it.
and the wall's before us tonight. So,
Mr. Chairman?
go ahead, Mr. Vargas.
The only concern I have is, so you're going to cut the wall back, and the end that faces, I guess that's south, is just going to be open. And then maybe the tenant's going to put in a decorative fence?
On the south side, no, we're going to install bollards there.
Oh, you are going to install bollards there? Okay, then. withdraw.
So we're going to vote on what's before us this evening. Subsequent to that, you're going to have to come back at a later date if you want to change it. Is that the pleasure of the commission? Mr. Sidoti?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve with these 5 stated conditions,
You
with
agree
the
to-
understanding that you will have to come back if the evidence supports that that wall is not sufficient.
I'll second.
Go ahead.
The alternative is the wall, I mean, the wall can say the bollards can be provided, which will be reviewed again, and as long as they meet code, there's no reason why those can't be approved administratively.
I think we'd like to see what they're going to look like. So, right?
I agree.
Okay. Just when you're ready.
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Second public hearing, rezoning of 16-plus acres from R4 Single Family Residential to RVG Village Green, 8188 Garfield Road. Mr. Smergan.
Chairman Snow, members of the commission, my name is George Smerigan with Tactical Planning LLC with corporate offices in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. I am here this evening representing Chuck and Scott Andrews for the reconsideration of their application for the rezoning from R4 to RVG of approximately 16 acres of land located on Garfield Road in order to develop the property with a 40-lot subdivision. I am a professional planner. I practice here in Northeast Ohio. I represent both public and private clients. And this evening, I am here on behalf of the Andrews Brothers to discuss the resubmission of their application, the resubmission of their design. At the last hearing, both the staff and the commission made a number of observations and recommendations relative to the design that was before you at that time. We listened to your concerns and have submitted a revised plan that we believe addresses each of those issues. We have eliminated the sublot that was fronting on Garfield Road, so that there's one less lot in the development, and there are no lots fronting directly on Garfield now. We have reconfigured several of the lots. As you can see, sublot 1 and others have been redesigned to incorporate comments that were made. We added a recreational area and have provided amenities, which include a pavilion and an outdoor grill, to be located within that recreation area. We have provided pedestrian access to that recreation area by moving some of the lots, reconfiguring the lot layout. We've created a walkway path leading back down to that active portion of the recreation area. And you have probably also received in your packet, or should have received in your packet, the fact that we have added some decorative entry features. We have an entry feature approximately 15 foot high that would be located on sublot 1. We have a similar, slightly smaller version of that feature on sublot 4, at the corner of sublot 14. And at the northern entrance to the development, we have two similar versions of that same feature, with the smaller version that's on sublot 14. And we have interconnected those with a free rail white vinyl fence that's similar to the fence, if you're familiar with Gates Mills, similar to the fence that's used throughout the village in Gates Mills. All of that obviously addressing comments that were made at the previous meeting with regard to amenities, park area, recreation area, the number of lots, and the appearance from Garfield Road. You'll note that the design of the development is still very similar to what it was before, and that's because the design is dictated by several factors. We are protecting this sensitive environmental area. We do have wetlands in a sensitive environmental area that's located in the northwest corner of the site, and obviously we're not going to disturb that area, so that area is being protected. The second factor dictating the design is the proper handling of the stormwater management. The runoff to this site has some significant grade change, and so we have to handle that in an appropriate manner based on your code. And obviously, to do the detention properly, we have to do the detention in the direction that the water flows. So the location of the detention basin is based on the topography of the site, so it has to be where it is. Those things, those physical features are controlling the nature of design. The third factor that impacted the nature of this design was the preference by your city safety forces for a loop road system. Instead of doing some cul-de-sacs or what have you, they wanted a system that looped. So we have a road system that, based on their preference, will loop from Garfield all the way around back to Garfield. So those three factors have driven the layout of this property and the nature of the design that you see. Now, we are requesting the rezoning to RVG in order to better meet the market demands and to be competitive in the marketplace. I work all over Northeast Ohio. I can tell you that the demand today is for larger homes on smaller lots. Homes that have the amenities that folks are looking for in today's marketplace. But that is what home buyers are demanding. The market for half-acre lots very soft, to the point of being virtually non-existent. They are not the focus, the large lots are not the focus of today's home buyers. Not only am I basing this on my knowledge throughout Northeast Ohio and my experience in several communities, but my clients have experience with half-acre development just up the street, where they began a half-acre subdivision in 2004 and are still selling lots. Where around them, other developments done as RVG or as PUD, smaller lots, but comparable homes, have had substantial sales and are virtually sold out. So we put to you the fact that what we are trying to do is to provide what the market is demanding in terms of a housing product. And that's the market all over Northeast Ohio, and it's certainly the market here in Mentor. We provided you with some housing value data from the county. Hopefully you've got that county auditor's information as well. And that data was provided to substantiate two things. The first thing is that there's really no difference in value between RVG properties and R4 properties when it comes to the value. The value is really dictated by the nature of the house itself, and the size of the lot has virtually no impact. If you'll notice from that data, the RVG lots are actually on the tax rolls at higher values than the R4 lots. The second reason we provided you with that information is to demonstrate to you, because there was a concern expressed earlier, demonstrate to you that this project will fit the established character of the neighborhood and will not have any kind of damaging effect on values with adjacent R4 homes. In fact, it should do just the opposite. The houses that we are proposing to build will be comparable to all of the houses in that neighborhood, all of the houses on that street. That's the houses in the R4, the houses in the PUD. Our homes will be of equal size, equal quality, and equal value to all those homes in that neighborhood. There is no way that this project will not be consistent and compatible with that neighborhood, and there's no way that it will have any damaging effect on values in that neighborhood. The homes that we are proposing to build will greatly exceed the minimum requirements of the code. Keep in mind that we immediately across the street from us have a PUD development that was developed with smaller lots. We provided you with that information relative to the value of those homes on the lots. And we also have non-residential development immediately across the street from us. So that's another factor in terms of how we fit with this neighborhood. This is not exclusively an R4 neighborhood. Yes, there is plenty of R4 development there, but this is a kind of a mixed street, and we are being consistent with that mix, and we're certainly being consistent with it in terms of the size and the value of the homes that we're proposing to build. We are not talking about doing tract housing here. This isn't some national builder who's going to come in and throw these up in a month and be out of here. My clients are talking about using a local builder, very well-respected local builder, such as Pro-Built Homes, who will be doing individually constructed homes for quality that's consistent with the character of that neighborhood. The projected market value for the homes in this development is $450,000. That's the target market here. Obviously, some might be a little less. There will some that undoubtedly will be more, but that's the target market for these homes. My clients grew up in Mentor, and in fact, grew up on this site, and they have been part of the residential and commercial development of this city for their entire lives. This is their old homestead, and they have every intent to make it something that not only that they can be proud of, but that everyone in the city can be proud of. I think that you will recognize from your last hearing that we are not trying to just simply push forward. We listened to you. We took a step back. We made adjustments and modifications. We made a number of enhancements to the plan. We think all of those things, those comments that you made, those suggestions you made were positive ones. We took them that way, and we think we've come back with an enhanced version of what we were trying to do. In summary, we believe that the rezoning of this property is not only in the best interest of the property owner, but in the best interest of the city and the neighborhood. Neither the neighbors nor the city needs another R4 development that takes 15 years to finish. Something being under construction for that length of time is not beneficial to anybody. We want to do something that will be met well by the market, that will be well received, where we can put up quality dwellings but sell them in a reasonable span of time and not drag this out over years and years and years so that the neighbors are constantly faced with construction adjacent to them. Rezoning this property to RVG will permit the Andrews Brothers and their local custom home builder to compete effectively in the marketplace, to complete a successful development in a timely manner. Now, we are aware of the staff comments, and we accept and are prepared to comply with the 6 conditions that were set forth in the staff report. We accept all of those, and we will accomplish all of those.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against? Would you come up and identify yourself for the clerk, please?
My name's Robert Stratman. I live at 792 Elglow Lane. Sublot 13 is kind of right on the edge of the green area we're talking about on the south side of Elglow Lane. I obviously don't have the credentials the gentleman ahead of me had. However, I remain opposed to this thing. When we bought our lot from the Andrews in 2016, we paid $138,000, and we had a discussion with them about what was behind us, and we were led to believe it was going to be R4. No discussion ever came up about it being anything but R4. So I'm disappointed in that. I would like to discuss the issue of the market values. They are telling you that our market values on our street are $450,000. I downloaded the whole package. I found that very interesting. So I went in and did the numbers on the lots. It's interesting that when they ran their average for Belglow Lane, they left my house out at $680,000. They left a bigger house, catty-corner across the street, out of the average. They left one on the end of the cul-de-sac that was occupied recently. They left out the one down on the south side, right by Garfield, out of that average, all built within the last year. There's one unsold lot on that property. There's two unbuilt lots. The other one is owned. Those were all houses, 5 houses were built in the last year. So I'm having a problem with there's no market for half-acre lots. I also take umbrage at the statement in that memo that's in this package that who cares about grass. The Andrews family cared a lot about grass when they priced those lots for us on Belglow Lane. And we have minimums on those lots. I have to have a side entry garage. I have to have 2,200 square feet minimum home if it's a ranch. I have to have 2,800 square feet minimum if it's a 2-story. All that was put into, the deed before we could purchase the lot. Now we turn around and we're going to put 40 houses on 12 acres. I've yet to see what the minimum requirement for the house is going to be. I'm guessing it isn't going to be 2,200 square feet with a side entry garage for a ranch, nor is it going to be 2,800 square feet with a side entry garage for a 2-story. So I've got a problem with that. On the one hand, they're arguing that this is all Minner wants. On the other hand, we've put 5 houses up in the last year on our street. There's still one under construction as we speak right now. And so there's a demand for it because there's only one lot left. So I'm having a real problem with the whole basis for changing this. The neighborhoods to the north of this and west of Garfield are R4. All of the neighborhoods to the south, up till you get to the church by I-90 are R4. And all of the neighborhoods west of Garfield, all the way to Route 20 are R4. So you're putting, in the middle of all that, you're putting something that's zoned entirely differently and is entirely different than most of us that bought on Belglow Lane assumed was going to be there and were told was going to be there by the Andrews family when we bought the property. So I've got a real problem. I think the real elephant in the room here is we argue about the altruistic stuff in this. I think the bottom line is you can get 40 lots crammed in here and they're going to make more money to the detriment of those of us who bought very expensive lots from the Andrews family as recently as 2016. If I wanted that kind of a development, there were houses available at Newell Creek. I've been in Mentor since 1980. I could have bought a house in Newell Creek. That isn't what I wanted, nor did anybody else on our street. So it's a little impassioned plea, but I've got a problem with their averages on the house values because they've left out some pretty expensive homes on our street, and I don't agree with the numbers they've put in there. They claim they get them from Zillow. I have no idea where they get those numbers. I know what I paid for my house, and it's $200,000 more than they're saying the average home value is in there. And I'm not the biggest house on the street. So I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for entertaining my comments.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak against? Would you come forward and identify yourself for the clerk, please?
My name is Bob Peacock. I live on Belglow Lane, and I live next door to Bob that just spoke. I'm opposed. I live at 7972 Belglow Lane, Lot 12. I'm opposed to the rezoning of Echo Hill Farms. This will impact the homes on Belglow. There's no reason that the Andrews family could not put a half-acre lots with 100-foot frontage instead of 60-foot wide lots. I can put 14 cars in my driveway. They can put 2. All the rest have to go on the street. There's not just more grass to cut, as they stated, but more landscaping on Belglow, more flowers, more trees. That's what makes the street more attractive. R4 would allow various builders with different architectural designs instead of row housing with minimal choice. They all look alike. You may have a different front porch, you may have something a little bit different, but you have to strain your eyes to see the difference. The Andrews family does not keep their word. As an example, my daughter bought a lot on our street, lot 16. It was put in the contract that they'd cut the weeds in that lot. Mentor requires that. The weeds were over my head high. They were supposed to cut it in the fall. She bought it in the summer. They were supposed to cut it in the fall and again the next summer. It was in the contract. They did nothing. I had to go down myself with my tractor, and so the neighbors, I feel sorry for the neighbors, all the weeds and the seeds blowing into their yards. It looks crummy. And they never did this. They did not keep their word. How can we expect them to keep their word now? Is this, after this goes through this planning commission, if it passes, is this a legal binding contract?
Mr. Zeman,
Or
you
can
wanna-
it be
you wanna address
changed?
that?
The Planning Commission makes recommendation to the City Council. The matter, positively or negatively, it is then referred to the City Council. City Council will then schedule another public hearing, and ultimately the City Council will decide whether via ordinance to rezone this property pursuant to this or some development plan or not.
Does that answer your question?
It means it's not illegal.
Well, this is part of the review process, so this is a step in a longer process that culminates with the city council reviewing what the planning commission recommends.
They could change this proposal 10 more times. They've reduced it from 41 houses down to 40. Am I gonna come back in 2 months when they reduced it down to 39? I mean, this is like a dog chasing his tail here. The last comment I have is that the TV show American Greed should have them on their program. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak against? Yes, sir. Would you identify yourself for the clerk, please? I'm going to ask you a favor. I'm going to ask you not to get into personalities.
Hello, my name is John Cabot. I live at 7989 Eleanor Court. So my property backs up to Andrew's property on the other side that then does Belglow. I thought I was better prepared, but there's just so many things about this I don't like. It's hard to find a place to begin. So let's start from the beginning. I've lived in my house for 26 years after it was built. We chose a half-acre lot because that's what we wanted, and because that is what existed for all the streets from 84 up to my street, Eleanor Court, which is the last one developed. The proposal that we're talking about right now is so radically different than anything on those 6 streets. Every street that was built, and probably those ones closer to 84, were built maybe as late as the 50s or as early as the 50s, certainly maybe the 60s. Every street that was built turned out a little bit nicer until we wind up with Belgo, which is one of the most beautiful streets in Mentor. I think our street is beautiful, Eleanor. I was sitting in the middle over there, and I'm looking at your screen, and I'm thinking, how far away am I from that screen? About 25 feet, 30 feet? I'd like to ask, what is the distance between the back of a house that's going to back up to my property on sublot 7? Could somebody answer that for me? I read the proposal, and I kind of gathered the numbers, if I'm interpreting them correctly, are that from the back of the house in the new development to the property line, which I border, is 25 feet. I'm asking for a clarification on that.
Larry, can you answer that question?
25 feet.
25 feet. From my seat, I can see everyone's face. I can see what color tie you're wearing. I can see what color hair you have. I can see if you're wearing glasses. I can see if you got a pencil in your hand. 25 feet from the back of my property, I will be able to see a house and all the living activity that will go on in that house and on that property. Every tree is going to be taken down. I object to it in so many ways. Let me go back now to what was said about embellishing the entrance to this development. The developers evoked the words Gates Mills and Hunting Valley. You drive into the development, and that's where it all ends. The white fence, something we can all buy at Menards or Lowe's or Home Depot, granted. People in Gates Mills might use it too, but that's where the association ends. If you would be so kind as to bring up the picture of the recreational area, the picnic area.
Larry, can you do that?
Looks like Gates Mills to me. Looks like Huntington Valley to me. Oh, wait a minute. It looks like a campsite It looks like some of the rest stops that I pull off and take a break at when I'm on the freeway for too long. It doesn't look like anything I've seen in a street in Mentor. And I'm offended by that. I'm offended by the fact that they can tell me that's not going to affect my property value. I might add that that is going to be right behind my neighbor's house. If this thing takes off, if it serves that little development, how many people can you expect there? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50? Is it going to be the new home of graduation parties, anniversaries, family get-togethers, block parties? Is there going to be alcohol? Is there going to be music? Are there ordinances about this? Where are the porta potties? This is ridiculous. There's not a single development in Mentor that has this at the end of their street or in their development. I don't think this embellishes or improves that development. I think it's an attempt at saying, now it's user-friendly for the people who live there. What's not user-friendly for me is that house being 25 feet away from me. I can look into the eyes of the people who are going to live there just as easily as I can standing here at the podium. I'm worried about the kind of problems that kind of embellishment is going to cause. The noise, the drinking, hanging out, all the other problems that come with providing a venue for that kind of activity. Property value. If I put my house up for sale today, somebody would go in my backyard and say it's beautiful. I have about 200 feet from the back of my house to the back of my property line. 16 acres of trees behind me. If someone is looking for a house on a half an acre, they would like my property. If they come to my house, and if this is approved, and they see a house 25 feet away from my property line, I think I've lost a customer. I think I've lost a potential buyer. I feel strongly about that. And I don't know what exactly the criteria is for Village Green, but I bet you it doesn't say an opportunity for a landowner to squeeze as many houses in on a small lot as he can and make more money. I think it must have something to do with making the street better or making it more usable or functional to the people who live on it. That's what I've got to say. Thank you for listening to me. And to make it clear for the record, I disapprove of this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any- Yes, ma'am.
I live on Eleanor Court. My name is Diana Trapoto, and I live on 7969. So my lot would back right up to that recreational area that John was talking about. And I'm way against that. Right now, we live there, and it's quiet. It's nice. We can look out. I'm planning on redoing my deck area and roofing it and screening it. I don't want to look out with the house, like he said, and then with that rec area and a whole bunch of people looking in on our deck and who knows what else. I think that's really, like John said, lowering our property value. I think they can do so much more with what they have.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Hi, I'm Joe Conley, 7983 Belglow Lane. We've been there for 13 and a half years. And when we moved there 13 and a half years ago, we paid $140,000 for that lot. Not expecting to ever have something like this that's going to be developed. We were told the neighborhood was going to get better. I paid at that time $559,000. And the thing of it is, they've never lived up to what they were going to do on that street. Finally, in the last few years, they're building some very nice, beautiful homes. But you know, this is absolutely wrong that we paid this kind of money for this area. Now this is what we're going to get. And I'd like to know, what are these lots gonna sell? How much are they gonna be?
I want to make a comment. It's not our proposal. You know, guys come to us with the idea of they want to rezone something. You know, they're making the presentation. We're not making the
I
presentation.
totally understand.
So-
I'm looking at the fact that they're gonna do this, and the value of our homes in this beautiful street that we have on Belglow, it's gonna be worthless, absolutely worthless. If they wanna build something comparable to what we have now, I'm totally for it. But to do this, it's wrong.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. Anyone else?
Stratman. I live at 79.
Speak into the
I
microphone.
live at 7982 Belglow Lane. My husband Robert spoke first. I agree with every single thing all my neighbors have said. I would like to make one point that's a little bit on a different topic. If this Village Green would be approved, which we all had the expectation when we moved onto Belglow, I personally went and looked at homes in Newell Creek. They were very nice. They were very lovely homes, but it was not the atmosphere I wanted to live in. I've lived in Menor since 1980. Menor was at one time, I think, said they were a tree city. We were promoting trees. I've seen a lot of trees being just needlessly whacked down. But I thought I opted not to move to Newell Creek because I didn't want the condensed number of residents. I wanted my neighbors just a little bit further away. I love all my neighbors, but I didn't want them, within handshake distance. Also, Garfield Road is a nice, quiet road. It's 25 miles per hour. Many people walk. Many people ride bicycles on Garfield Road. If you put in an R4 development with 40 homes, you're going to have a hugely increased density of traffic and population. And that is really not the flavor of that area. People who want to be closer can find a home in Newell Creek. There's plenty of resales in there. But to carve out one little area on the west side of Garfield and say, things aren't selling so hot at half acre, so let's just cram in this, we can, put this in. It doesn't fit. And it'll add a lot of traffic if school-age children come. It'll add a lot of school bus traffic. It'll really impact Garfield Road, I think, in a very negative way with services needed and amount of traffic and amount of population. And we all built our houses on Belglow and Eleanor expecting to have it more quiet and more countrified. And like I said, I've been in Menor since 1980. I chose to stay in Menor. I like Menor. I want to promote Menor and have Menor have options to people who want to buy small homes, small lots. There's plenty of that. They can also, it would be good if they could find larger lots as well. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes. Whoops. I've got two guys coming forward.
My name's Mike Tarasco. I live at 7963 Belglow Lane. And when I look at this development and when I look at Newell Creek with the Village Green type of scenario, it really kind of reminds me where I grew up in Wickliffe, Willowick. Houses are much more closer together. And it really doesn't kind of fit the area of Menor that we live in. And as my neighbors so put, we're all R4. We all have half-acre lots, maybe a little bit bigger if you're on a cul-de-sac. We bought those because we wanted it. We had the means to do that, put our houses up, and I do think that there's a definite market for it. I'm not sure whether or not Mr. Andrews would be able to put, split that down there and put two more R4 properties in there. We have 19 streets on Belglow. He probably would have to do it a little bit different than Belglow because the one right down in the middle And I think at the last planning commission, some of the people said, I don't know how we allowed that last lot right in the middle because it was just so pie-shaped that, you know, he probably wouldn't be able to get 19, probably 18 if you bring the cul-de-sac to the middle and give the last two people a little bit bigger lot. But we have no creek off to the side. I think that that kind of fits the property profile of what, you know, Menor is at that particular area. Young couples, people that are downsizing. But the, on our side of the side of Garfield, I really think that the R4 way is to go with half-acre lots.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Mike Weber, and I'm at 8032 Belgalow, and I'm the newest house, I believe, on the street. And as far as the value, I just spent $550,000 on my house, and so much higher than what was quoted. I was looking at the lots over on Belgalow for 5 years, my wife and I were, but they were selling at a premium. They were selling at, I got mine for $140,000. So I think part of the reason why those lots weren't selling were because the higher price. So, but in the end, I think that's what we wanted, a half-acre lot. We lived in a subdivision that was, you know, you could basically touch your neighbor, and that's not what we wanted. I think a lot of young families and older families, they would prefer a half-acre lot in Menor. Thank you.
I'm going to deviate a little bit. Are there any realtors in the crowd? We've heard a lot of testimony here this evening where people have been asking about the desirability of smaller lots. And I was just going to ask if there's realtors in the crowd, if they could either confirm or deny that. So, Mr. Smirgan, you're welcome to come back.
Yeah, just a couple of points of rebuttal, Mr. Chairman, and I won't take a great deal of your time. I think you have the information you need to make an informed decision. With regard to the housing data that we provided you in evaluation, we indicated that came from the county auditor. You have documentation that indicates that that came from the county auditor. Not something that we made up, but not something we pulled out of the air or pulled off of some real estate website. Came from the county auditor. And so, unless you think your county auditor is clueless, those are the values that they've established for the properties in that neighborhood. There was a comment made about tract housing versus individually constructed homes. We have represented to you that this will not be a tract housing project, that we will be having homes built individually by local builders, such as ProBuild. We'll be doing one-of-a-kind homes in here, so there's not going to be a situation where you have Ryan or Pulte or somebody coming in and putting up 40 of the same thing. That's not what's intended here. We represented that to you, and I thought I represented it fairly clearly. To claim that what we are proposing to do is radically different than the neighborhood is clearly unfair and ridiculous. What we are talking about doing is building first-class quality housing in the same price range that's there, same sizes that's there, the same styles that's there. That's not radically different. We have across the street from us a planned unit development. We also have across the street from us a non-residential development. We have an industrial or an office building directly across the street. Are we radically different than the neighborhood? I suggest to you that we're not. We fit in with the neighborhood. Is the entire street absolutely the same and identical? No, it's not. There's a variation, and we're well within the range of that variation. And what we're asking to do is not unreasonable or inappropriate, and it's not in any way going to negatively affect the value of any of these folks' homes. I find it interesting and amusing that they think they live in a beautiful neighborhood, but I think they're forgetting who developed that neighborhood. very people that they're vilifying are the people who created that neighborhood to start with. So can we trust these folks to build a nice neighborhood and a nice development? I think that if these folks think that their neighborhood is beautiful and well done, then the answer to that's clearly yes, because they're the folks who did that. And so we have provided you with a plan that attempted to address all the comments that were raised at the last hearing. There was an indication that you wanted a recreation area, you wanted there to be some active facilities. We incorporated those active facilities. I understand that some of the neighbors are unhappy about that. But we put those in response to the comments that we received. Whole business of doing the entry feature and the fencing along the front was, again, response to the comments that we received. What we have tried to do is listen and respond. You know, that's what this is all about. We're trying to make this the best development that it can be and to make sure that we have satisfied what you think is important about how this should be laid out and how this should be done. Mr. Andrews has a development that's been under construction, and he's been selling lots for 15 years. That's a long time to do a subdivision. Yes, I understand lots have sold. Lots will always sell. Question is, do they sell in any kind of a timely fashion that makes having done the subdivision worthwhile in the first place? We have a very negative experience right next door to this. My clients are not interested in going through that folly again. They think that there's a better segment of the market that's out there, a much stronger segment of the market. And I can tell you from my professional experience, they're correct. And that it will do much better and complete this much sooner, and homes will be of much better value, will fit into the neighborhood. They do this as the RVG, and it also provides the opportunity to protect those sensitive areas and preserve that green area, as opposed to every square inch of this being in somebody's lot. So the idea here was to do something that had positive features to it, that was consistent with the values in the neighborhood, consistent with the concept that they've done in the past. None of their developments have been tract housing developments. That's not who these gentlemen are. They've been here all their lives. They're not going to change now. They're doing what they believe is the right thing to do, the right thing for this property, the right thing for the city. Respectfully request positive recommendation to council with regard to the rezoning of this.
Commission members, any questions for the applicant?
You're going to close the public hearing first?
Yeah, we'll close the public hearing. George, you want to come back up?
Sure.
We're going to ask the commission members now to, if they have questions. Anybody?
I have a comment.
Okay, go right ahead.
One of the bones of contention here seems to be the what's considered, or, a communal use space for the subdivision, and that you've responded to all our comments. Well, I just need to clarify for everyone's purposes. I made a point of stating strongly that putting a picnic place behind someone's house is not a desired recreational experience. Just like walkways and things like that. Some of these projects, not just this project, not just this proposal, but other proposals, try to interpret these requirements or these desired outcomes about having walkways, recreational space, communal space, village green space, okay? But in past reviews, and including the review of this previously, it was clearly stated that putting these in someone's backyard is not a desired outcome. That you dedicate a space for this. The desire the suggestion I had made even was that maybe this kind of space should be in the middle of the subdivision, not stuck in a corner or behind someone's house, both for the reasons of not putting it behind these people, the new properties, but also the properties adjacent. That's not the desire. No one is looking for that. There's a big corner over here that there's nothing in it, and I don't know. It just seems that everyone has a hard time trying to figure this out. But its location here is not a desirable location, and it wouldn't add any benefit in general to the community. The other observation is that other than that, and the removal of Lot 41, it's exactly the same plan that we reviewed before. Small modifications for this past. It's exactly what we saw before. I'm not sure I understand why it was a vote. You know, we responded to this then. It was then, I guess it was withdrawn. Now we see it again. I'm not sure I understand what the difference is that I'm looking at. I know you discussed a few things, but in substance, these are exactly the same proposals.
The general layout, as I indicated during my initial presentation, general layout is the same because the layout is dictated by several factors.
Well, I understand. You don't need to reiterate that. All I'm trying to say is that this is the same plan we rejected 6-0. And so I'm not sure what you expect differently.
It's not the identical plan, obviously. I talked to you about the things that have changed. We did change the green area. We did change the lot count. We did change the configuration of several of the lots, and we added the features that were items that came up in comment as to things that you wanted to see incorporated. If the pavilion is not something you want, then you need to indicate to us. And
it's not that we don't want a pavilion or a resource for the community, the subdivision. We don't want it in someone's backyard, both on this site and adjacent to the site. That's not the desire, is to create a... Why would I want to live in lot 10 or 9 or 10 and have all these people in my backyard? I don't want to do that. I don't want to live there. So I'm looking at the environment for the people that will buy these lots, and I'm also talking about the people who are adjacent to this, who don't want people having a party in their backyard. So the desire, the request that we made, or the observations that we made, are not these. This is not what we asked for. This is not desirable.
Well, I understand that it may not be your desire to be on lot 9 or lot 10, but I would submit to you, with all due respect, that may not be the feeling of everyone who's in the home purchasing situation.
That's fine. It's an opinion. It's my opinion. I'm a commissioner.
If I could please finish. There are folks who would rather have that green area behind them. Yes, there may be periodic use of it, rather than having their lot back up to another lot. I see that all the time. I can tell you that in most developments, those are the lots that sell first.
I'm going to ask a question of the administration. Have we seen an R4 plan for this? Have you guys seen an R4 plan?
Yeah, it was submitted originally, yes.
You have.
And
Okay.
there were 2 that were submitted.
Okay. Okay. That was my question.
Yes, we submitted 2 different versions, I believe. But they came in with the initial submission.
Okay. So,
We didn't resubmit them.
right. Any other questions, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Perkovic?
I have a comment as well. There was a statement from the administration that talks about the grade changes, which the applicant really has somewhat glossed over, that there are, on Lot 9 especially, is according to the notes, has a 13-foot grade drop from one side to the other, as well as multiple lots in that subdivision. And there's also a comment that because of this, that there's a section in our code book that talks about minimum setbacks from steep slopes and et cetera, which I think really could impact some of these lots. We might find that some of these lots, essentially have to get bigger or less of them, which right now we're not privy to. So I think that is something that's a negative with this proposal as well. Thank you.
Mr. Smirgan, any comment relative to Mr. Perkovic?
We're confident that the grading on this property will work appropriately. We're confident that we can choose house types specific for lots that can take advantage of the grade change as opposed to fighting the grade change. A lot of different ways to do that. And we believe that we have a resourceful enough builder that we can do that.
Okay.
We don't see it as something that's impossible to deal with.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sidoti?
I have a problem with some of your documentation that you talk about the Lake County Auditor and the valuations that he has set forth, and you provided some of that documentation in your package. The Lake County Auditor, that's based on an ad valorem process. Ad valorem is the Latin term for according to value. And they're establishing a value strictly for real estate tax purposes. They establish the assessed value, take a percentage, they come up with value which they can apply to real estate taxes. And that's why they establish boards of revision, because you see the number of people that go to the auditor and appeal these valuations, because it's been proven over time they're not 100% reliable. Number two, if I went in the bank tomorrow and want to borrow, my wife and I want to borrow $175,000, and I tell the loan officer, just look at what the county has established and loan me the money, they're going to look at me like, I'm crazy. That's why they bring professional independent appraisers. Now, an independent appraiser will look at the county valuation, they consider it, they weigh it, but they decide what that value should be based on the market, what a seller would sell for, what a buyer would buy for. So I think there's a little weakness in that argument. That's my comment. You don't have to.
The county auditor establishes a market value. From the market value, they establish an assessed value.
Right.
We're aware of that.
Yes.
Their market value comes from a number of things. Part of that is their analysis of sales. That's why the housing values change in neighborhoods. As sales occur in those neighborhoods, it may push the values on that street up or down. No one sees that easier than the auditor. They have all that data from all those sales. Can they be wrong? Hell, anybody can be wrong. But for the most part, they are certainly in the ballpark. And as long as you are using a consistent source, then I think you've got something reasonable to talk about. We're not going to bring in an appraiser and have him appraise every house on those streets. That doesn't make any sense. I guess we could go on some real estate site and pull up what some realtor thinks all those houses are worth. But at least with the county auditor, you have someone who has credentials for assessing the value of property. And they do that comprehensively. So there's no bias, there's no built-in skew to their findings. And so everything's treated the same. We felt that at least was a way of giving you information to address the issue of how these things fit. There was a statement that there was some vast differential in the value between RVG houses and half-acre R4 houses. And the fact of the matter is, if you go and look, there isn't. There just isn't. Because the value, the largest portion of the value isn't coming from the land, it's coming from the structure. Okay? And if you're building big houses on the smaller lots, you're creating the same value as you do if you build that same house on a slightly larger lot. The valuation is not going to be substantial.
I agree with you, it's a starting point. Should that documentation be weighed? Absolutely, yes. To throw it on the table and say, here it is, this supports what I'm talking about, short of bringing in an appraiser to look at that documentation, take into consideration, identify the flaws, no, I don't think you should be throwing it out there and using it like you're using it.
And,
I
no,
don't
well,
want- I don't
what I
think we
told
should-
you we used it for was to indicate that we were gonna be in the ballpark, that this was not out of character with the neighborhood. The values that we're projecting are consistent with what's being shown. And that's what I said it was worth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Zeman, procedurally, you want to go through that again? We come up with a positive or negative recommendation, it goes to council.
Correct. Council will then schedule it for a public hearing. There's newspaper publication, the notice, just like with the Planning Commission's review. Then the public hearing is scheduled, and persons are, of course, allowed to speak during the course of that public hearing. Council then deliberates the actual legislation, which would determine whether or not the property would be rezoned.
The plan that we saw this evening, does that become part of the formal presentation to council?
Yes, as the Commission's aware, rezonings to RVG must be pursuant to development plans.
So there's not an opportunity for them to come back with lesser amount of units?
I would not say that. The planning committee, the city council can make modifications to whatever the planning commission recommends.
I'm addressing the one fellow's concern tonight about could there possibly be less houses in the future?
Certainly the city council has the code authority
So
to.
the answer to that would be yes.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else, commissioners? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll motion for a vote with the 6 conditions.
Second.
You ready?
Mr. Cicero.
No.
Mr. Cook.
No.
Mr. Perkovic.
No.
Mr. Sidoti.
No.
Mr. Tiedemann.
No.
Mr. Varga.
No.
Mr. Snow.
No.
Thank you for your time.
Findings of fact?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if the commission's prepared tonight to issue findings of fact, I'd appreciate that.
Okay. You want to call the roll again for that?
Mr. Cicero.
My opinion hasn't changed since the last planning meeting. I don't think the plans have changed. RVG does not fit this area, and it needs to be a benefit to the other neighbors as well as the development they're attempting to build.
Mr. Cook.
My opinion hasn't changed. I'd like to see it be developed as an R4 development.
Mr. Perkovic.
I didn't think the plan deviated from the previous plan enough, as well as there was a lot of deficiencies that weren't addressed at this time.
Mr. Sidoti.
As I said back in June, I strongly feel and believe that the RVG zoning can and will alter the intended character of this neighborhood. My opinion remains the same.
Mr. Tiedemann.
The RVG at this point does not fit in with the character, the way that area exists currently.
Mr. Varga.
The purpose of this hearing is to consider the zoning change. The purpose of zoning is to develop consistent land use and consistent developments that promote and consistent and dependable property values. I believe this project is inconsistent with those values.
Mr. Chairman, may I add one more point?
Sure.
Zoning change or zoning changes can be contentious, to say the least. I would like to know, has any effort or attempt been made before you brought forth this project to the commission, previously and today, to garner the input, solicit the input from the existing community, to create a dialogue to see what the issues and concerns were so that you may address and talk about them previously before bringing this project to us? Yes or no answer?
He left. I think he left.
All right, well, Mr. Andrews left too. All right, well, that's something that concerns me, and by seeing the community individuals here today and who attended the previous meeting, I gotta believe that no dialogue was was created. No input was taken. And I think that's not correct. And to change the zoning now without that type of input and that type of effort, I think you're selling out the residents that live there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Me?
It's you.
I would like to see, and taking into consideration the residents' comments tonight, I'd like to see this possibly be developed as R4. So that was the reason for my no vote. So, Mr. Zeman, it goes to council now with a negative recommendation from the Planning Commission.
That's correct.
And what happens at the council level? What kind of support does council need for this?
Pursuant to code, in order to override the negative recommendation, a supermajority affirmative vote is required by the city council.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on. Conditional use permit to allow a building addition, warehouse, and office greater than 45 feet in height at 90, I see those applicant is here.
Did we say something wrong? Everyone's leaving?
Oh, my gosh.
This is,
We're going to hear from the award-winning Dick Weber. Okay.
what is this? Oh, these are the comments, the new comments.
So the fire department's okay with it.
Hey, Don, go right ahead. Whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of Planning Commission. My name is Don Dietrich. I'm with M.E. Osborne Construction Company. We will be the design builders for this project, should it pass all scrutiny. Would like to give you a little history about where we're at here. M.E. Osborne Construction has a relationship with Byers Products dating back to 1984. We were contracted to design and build a 61,000 square foot office warehouse facility located at 7700 Tyler Boulevard, Mentor. In 1994, Byers Products contracted us to design and build a 60,000 square foot warehouse addition to this building. In doing so, the building size was maximized on the property. 7 years later, Byers had outgrown this facility, so in 2000, we teamed up with Byers again to design build a 150,000 square foot office warehouse located at 9049 Tyler Boulevard. Again in 2006, due to rapid growth, we designed build a 70,000 square foot addition to that facility. So now we are here before the commission requesting a conditional use permit to allow a building height greater than 45 feet, which is allowed by code in the M2 Heavy Manufacturing District, and also for preliminary site plan approval for a total of 244,000 square foot office warehouse facility. With me this evening is Mr. Dick Weber. He's the project design architect. He's been the design architect on all the buildings for Byers Product. So he can answer any questions that might come up concerning the building. We have one important dimension change that came up yesterday evening, 5 o'clock. The original submittal to the staff, we had asked for a building height of 64 feet, 6 inches in the warehouse. The consultant who is working with Byers Product to design the racking and pick towers inside the building notified us last evening that we need 2 additional feet. So we are really asking for 64 feet, 6 inches instead of, 66 feet, 6 inches instead of 64 feet, 6 inches.
Kathy, do you see a problem with that?
No, I mean, based on, at least from a procedural standpoint, the way the legal notice was submitted, it just said greater than 45 feet. And as long as you're comfortable with that, that would have to be made a condition of the approval.
Okay. Go right ahead.
So that's pertaining to the conditional use permit for the height As far as the building goes, again, any specific questions, Mr. Weber can answer, but the facility would be, I don't know if you have the site plan that you had up there earlier. This addition goes to the west of the existing building. Where the racks are shown on the right-hand side of the page, that's the existing building, and office area that is darkened in at the top of the page is the existing office. Facility that's being added is the no background area to the left or to the west. So with this improvement, we are adding additional parking, and we are adding docks on the west side of the building.
Okay. Why don't we deal with the CUP
Okay.
first?
Okay.
Any questions regarding the building height, fellas?
I just have one question. I know this is not an architectural review, it's just, the additional 2 feet, is that going to go into the metal siding at the top of the
Yes.
building? So the line, the line that matches up with the precast will still be
Yes.
consistent? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion for the CUP.
Motion to approve with 2 conditions.
Second.
And do we need to adjust the height?
Comments from the audience?
Okay, any comments from the audience? Pros or cons? Hearing none, we'll close the public portion. Now, can we make the adjustment on the height? Okay. Who made the motion?
All right, do you want to know the motion?
Yeah, I want the motion
Rescind the
adjusting the
previous
height.
motion. Motion to approve with 3 conditions. The third condition that the approval will also apply to increasing the height of the building to 66 feet and 6 inches.
Is there a second?
Oh, second.
Just when you're ready.
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes. Okay. There's no old business, so new business. Don't walk far.
Okay.
So now we're talking about the addition.
Okay.
And I think you answered Mr. Varga's question about the banding. Anything else any other comments you want to make?
Well, I also wanted to indicate that with this addition, as this site plan shows, we will be adding a detention pond at the west end also.
Now, is the parking close to the freeway, isn't that new parking?
The stuff close to the freeway is existing. The only new parking is the southernmost row, right there.
Okay.
That row is new parking. Plus, we had indicated on the west side of the truck dock area that we were going to have some land bank parking.
Right.
But we received some comments from the staff review. They questioned why, there was 11 parking places different. They questioned why we would not, why are we going to land bank? Why don't we just
Why don't you just
why don't we
build it?
just, so we are going to do that. We have actually modified what you see there, the site plan. I know it's preliminary review here, but on the final, you'll see
Okay, an adjustment?
adjustment, and we will be putting in, I think it's 29 parking places over there, so that'll take care of the 11 that we had.
Kathy, does that satisfy the administration?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I mean, other than that, the building materials will match as they have to. We're adding on. The precast will all match what's there now. The glass band will be new, and the metal on the top will be new.
Can I just make an observation?
Go ahead.
What I notice is, leave up the existing building. I notice a pattern, and I'm not against any of these patterns. I think that the addition, as it's shown here, is attractive. That shows a different kind of pattern as the addition does. Is it going to be different? The existing building there has it, no?
No.
Yeah, well,
It'll be the same.
okay, well, that's different than what you're showing on the elevations.
We're going to make
I don't actually care. I'm just pointing out that the existing has one kind of pattern to it. This shows a pattern that's different than that, and I'm just wondering.
But the architect says it'll be the same.
It'll be the same. And they don't even have to be this. I'm just pointing out that the two are different. Okay.
We're proposing to take something on the west side of the building now.
That's right, I read that.
Right.
So they're going to be the same?
Yes.
It's going to be the same. So it'll be a consistent project when it's done. Very good. Thank you.
Spoken through the interpreter.
That's why we have to have him here.
I know.
That's why they have me here. That's why they have me here.
The answer to Mr. Vargas' question was provided by Mr. Dick Weber. He's the project design architect.
Yes.
So I talked about we did the staff report. We have no problems with anything in the staff report, but I'd just like to say that we are going to have a developed landscape plan with our next submittal as requested. And the outdoor lighting, we actually commissioned someone to do it, but they couldn't have it ready for tonight, but we will have it for the final review. Yes, sir. The civil comments and engineering comments, we have no issues with it all. That information will all be provided at the final review.
Go ahead.
Well, I have one other comment. The rendering is nice, shows a lot of nice trees. We want to see those trees if you're going to show them to us.
Well, the owner is here, and as you can see, he did a terrific job on the existing building, and that's going to carry through.
Sure, no,
on this
I'm
one.
just saying, we see a lot in initial proposals in elevation, we see lots and lots of trees and landscaping, and then when they build it, it's like an empty room, so we'd like to see what you show.
You'll be impressed. You'll be impressed.
Thank you.
And since Mentor's the former rose capital of the United States, could we see a little rose bushes in there?
Why not?
Thank you.
And again, we're okay with all the conditions that were given in the staff report.
Okay, good. I entertain a motion, Commissioners.
I'll make a motion with the 6 conditions.
Second.
Jess, when you're ready.
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes.
Thank you.
All set? I
done.
know. Last item on the agenda, informal rezoning of 6.02 acres from B1 Community Service to B2 General Business. Is that applicant here? Come forward and identify yourself for the clerk, please.
Good evening, everybody. My name is H.B. Patel, and I'm from. I'm here on behalf of Busaras Lodging. We are here to request for zoning change to B2 from B1 for 89 rooms Fairfield Inn Suite.
Okay. I have a question for the law director. Since this was a referendum zoning going from R2 to B1 initially, does the general public have a say in going the other way now? Or not?
It is going from a business classification to a business classification, so
The
if
answer
you're
would be
asking.
no. Okay. I'm just curious as to,
Well-
since it was a referendum.
Yeah, there's always a right of initiative petition, so, it's not always a yes or no answer.
I'm sorry, go right ahead.
Yes, so I have a small brochure I would like to deliver to each one, so you can able to see what exactly.
Pick your room.
Thank you.
So it's a Fairfield unit?
Yes, Fairfield Inn and Suite by Marriott, 89 rooms.
Kathy, any comments from the administration? I know the site is somewhat problematic in terms of ingress and egress.
We raised some concerns in the staff report with regard to the rezone and some of the concerns with consistency and the zoning that's in place and the B1 that was established. There are some differences in the types of uses allowed, which is why they need to go to the B2 because hotels are not permitted in the B1. Also, the height restriction is different in the B1. It cannot exceed 35 feet. They want to go higher than 35 feet, which is allowed in the B2, but not in the B1.
Gotcha.
So there are those concerns, and we've listed the items that would need to be identified should they move forward in a formal rezone request.
Anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's about it. That's our main reason to be here today.
Just a question, if it informs the discussion or not, is the license going to be for transient use, extended stay, residence in?
What's the deal
Transient.
with Fairfield?
Transient use.
Transient?
Yes.
Roger, you want to ask your question?
Sure, I have a question. When I look at the site plan, when I'm thinking about this proposed project only takes up about half the property,
Right.
though we're going to be changing the zoning on all of it. What is proposed for the rest of the property?
Rest of the property, if we will keep as it is. We're not planning to disturb the rest of the property. So we would like to get the zoning change only where the hotel gonna get placed.
Okay, is that what's actually in front of us?
Well, we identified the parcels that were as part of the submission. I guess that would need to be clarified in a formal reason. That was not the case.
Right, because right now I'm looking and I see a property line that goes around all the property. Or maybe that's a setback line, I don't, I mean, right now, it's not clear to me when I look at this document. It looks to me like we're rezoning all the land.
Well, certainly, I mean, there's an area of, that's been noted on the site plan that's considered wetland area. There's also an active aquifer in that section of the property, which has been historically raised as a concern by the neighboring residents. Certainly, if the applicant does not intend to do anything with that area, that could be left out of the rezone. I mean,
That's kind of what I was leaning towards, which was, but we don't have I don't know that, I'm not saying we don't, but it appears to me that we don't have a clear definition of the piece of property that we're trying to rezone.
well, the parcel.
Well, here, it's 8346. Is that the parcel and the two small parcels?
Yes, I think.
Is that all that's in front of us? Just want to be clear.
Well, the parcels were identified on the actual application, which includes
Okay.
everything there that was encompassed on the aerial.
I guess, I didn't.
So only 8346.
And the two small parcels here.
8358.
8358 and
Is that your understanding,
8366.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Right. Now, I have another question. You've already kind of worked out the site plan, though we're not dealing with the site plan today. You're not presenting it for approval.
No, this is right.
And you look like you've got a prototype building that's pretty well detailed. Have you considered other alternatives to the placement of the building in this relative to how it might affect the people on the other side of Bellflower? For instance, and I'll just throw this out, I'm not making a condition, I'm just discussing. If you rotated it 90 degrees so that the people on Bellflower only saw the end of the building and not had to see the whole front of the building, could that be a possibility? I know you're not presenting that, I'm just throwing that out as an initial response.
Well, we would like to, we can try and see, how that goes with our final site plan.
Yeah, I'm just, no one seems to be concerned. No
Sure.
one from Bellflower is here, but the thought is that we have residential on the other side of the street, and maybe the smallest impact visually to that neighborhood, it might be something you look at, that's all. I'm not trying to do it for you, So, I think we all understand what parcels are being considered. All right, okay, thank you.
Kathy, any comments relative to the site plan as you see it? I mean, I do have stacking problems on Bellflower now.
One of the issues, it's a little premature without the trip generation study, but we anticipate that a turn lane would need to be added on Bellflower. there's obviously no access to Center Street, so Bellflower is the only access point. So, you know, that trip generation study will indicate what some of those needs are.
I guess our question, or my question is, how can you move forward on a informal rezoning request without the additional information of how this is gonna sit on the site? I mean, I'm talking about 2 curb cuts on Bellflower. I mean, is that your intention? I mean, I don't know if you can answer that without the trip generation study, but
I mean, certainly that would be the due diligence part on the applicants, of the applicant to do that.
so is there time for him to do that before we make a recommendation?
You're not making anything tonight other than you're just suggestions.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going with this?
Sure.
Okay. Commissioners, any other comments relative to the recommendation?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just, one additional comment that goes along with Mr. Vargas. As far as the placement on the site, whether it's rotated or not, I think the fact that it is as close as possible to the freeway and away from Bellflower and the residences is the way to go, which is much like what is shown. And then with the additional mounding and screening, I think that really could benefit the residents there if it does move forward. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Curious, there are a lot of hotels.
Mhm.
You know, there's 306, that exit's got several. The next exit, Heisley's got several. There's none at this exit, so who do you foresee as your target market? Where are you getting your customers? And how busy do you expect this location to be?
Well, we did the STAR report, we did the feasibility report, and the number came up very strong. So our experience, what we've done in the past, we feel very comfortable doing a hotel there, and it will do a pretty decent, revenue per year.
Okay.
So
I think-
I would say the travelers, from the SI2, and there are a lot of local companies that will support. And this is it's going to be a brand new facilities that will help a lot.
I think what I'm looking at is the residential, again, like my colleagues here. That what will the impact be on them at 2 a.m. when guests come home and maybe are a little rowdy? So take those residents into account in your design.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Sidoti.
piggybacking on my colleagues' statements, once a trip generation study is submitted and certain improvements have to be made in order to allow this to happen,
Sure.
like a turning lane or, pavement improvements, whatever, you're gonna incur that cost?
Sure,
totally?
we will.
For the record, you would incur all that cost?
Sure.
And also keep in mind that, Bellflower now is a busy street. It's a major cut-through from 615 going down to 306.
Mhm.
So it's fairly busy now, and it's only 25 miles an hour.
Right.
You got to take into consideration the amount of traffic that could be caused there, increased because of the hotel. And once users of the hotel find out that a comfortable way of moving around, instead of going east into that very busy intersection, would be to go down Bellflower to get to 306, then to the freeway. I think you're going to raise a lot of concerns from the residents on Bellflower at a public hearing. You better keep that in mind.
Okay.
And you said this was transient as opposed to long-term stay. Okay, I think you're going to get a lot of comments and concern that you're putting a transient hotel behind a child daycare center. And I think that's going to cause a lot of concern. Just some observations.
Do you have a
Oh,
comment?
I could clarify those terms, those state licensing terms. Transient is just occupancy for 30 days or less. So more of what you think of with a hotel for overnight or weekly stays or something. Some of the other licenses that are available are extended stay and residence inn. Kind of the key difference there is that they may have kitchen facilities, and so they may rent weekly.
Rooms.
Or
Kitchen facilities in the rooms.
correct. And so some of the operators market themselves as apartment alternatives because they do have some facilities there. And so whether or not that's an appropriate use in this location, that's not for me to say. I just want to thought it might inform the discussion to identify the type of license that would be issued for this hotel.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Patel, do you have a deal with Fairfield?
Yes,
Marriott?
yes, we do.
So that'll be the flag.
Yes, that will be the flag we are doing.
I have another question. Is there going to be anything else on this site or in the building other than the hotel?
No.
There's not going to be a restaurant?
It's not gonna be restaurant. It's gonna be just a hotel plus obviously the amenities like a swimming pool, fitness center, business
Right,
center.
but there will not be a restaurant open to the public?
No restaurant open for the public.
Thank you.
We have to serve free continental breakfast in the morning for our in-house guests, but no restaurant or bar or anything.
Mr. Patel, do you have any other hotels in the area?
Yes, we do have a hotel. I just opened one hotel in Elyria, Ohio, Courtyard by Marriott. We also opened a Homewood Suite in Stratford Village, Elyria. We have Hampton Inn and this is a family-owned business. We have several properties in 5 different states.
Go right ahead, Mr. Cook.
The biggest problem I have with the rezone is it was rezoned from R2 to B1. It was a referendum. People went out and voted for B1. And for us to change it to B2, it's hard pill for me to swallow to take it from B1 to B2 when the will of the people decided it was going to be B1. So I know we have that authority to do it, but it's hard for me to then bring it to something that they didn't. If it would have been R2 to B2, it might not have passed. So that's the problem I have with it. That's all I got.
When we purchased the land back in 2015, there is a commercial building in front, so we thought it would not be a problem to change from whatever we have as of now to B2.
So
And
you had no contingency in your contract with the previous owner?
No.
Okay.
We thought like there is a building, commercial building, and it shouldn't, be that hard to change.
So you have enough to bring forward another plan to us, right?
Sure.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. You're off the hook.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director's report.
Mr. Chairman, I do have an item that I wanted to discuss. Prior developer had reached out to me this week.
Excuse me one second. Mr. Patel, did you have something else? You're done. Okay. I'm sorry, Kathy.
No, that's okay. So on 615, behind the Erie Bank building is the parking lot that was constructed. It was just recently finished. It was originally submitted under Dara Properties, Mr. Jeff Kamey. And he is, the parking lot's done, and he's now moving forward with the landscaping that surrounds the lot. The adjoining neighbor, I believe that's to the north, right, has requested, as has the homeowners association, that instead of a vinyl fence, that they put an arborvitae. And so he would like to meet that request. The side building wall of that house actually is not, yeah, you can see it there. There's no windows on that side. So I guess it was a question of if that's something you wanted to have resubmitted formally for your review, or if that's something you were comfortable with us moving forward with and approving administratively the change from vinyl fencing to arborvitae.
I'm always in favor of plant material. So.
Oh, okay. So if you have no objections, he can move forward with that, and we'll make sure that it's noted in the file. Any other concerns?
I'm fine with it.
Okay. Okay. And just 2 other items. Obviously, we're still working on the design awards. We'll come back at the next meeting with a final ballot for you to consider.
Do you have everything you need?
Almost. Almost. We're hanging. Or,
She will in the morning.
yeah. hanging out for a couple more ballots, but we trust that they'll be here. Oh, maybe one more. So we trust that they'll be here, or it will be here tomorrow. And I just wanted to note one last thing. I just wanted to acknowledge that just last week, the Lake County Commissioners appointed Mr. John Perkovich to the Lake County Planning Commission. They, due to a change, when Concord went to home rule, under Ohio Revised Code, it tripped a new provision to go into effect that required not only a member from Concord, but a member of the representing the largest municipality in the county to serve on the Lake County Planning Commission. And so council made a recommendation, and they selected John Perkovich to that appointment, and he's going to be serving effective last week to August of 2022, and that doesn't change his role here, but I just wanted to acknowledge that. I think that's a great representation.
He would have preferred to be on the London
Yes.
Planning Commission, right?
London?
That's where he travels all the time.
Yeah. That's all.
Thank you.
That's it?
That-
Motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Okay.